Khanun hovering near Japan, Dora reaches yet another peak on tonight's tropical weather bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical weather bulletin for August 7th. So we have Hurricane Dora, the strongest storm out of 3 that we have active. We have Tropical Storm Eugene off the coast of Baja California, and we have Tropical Storm Khanun, which is extremely large and is mostly eye as it tracks slowly towards Japan. 35 storms so far this year were still code orange, primarily for Khanun. Day 68 of Atlantic hurricane season, and there's no areas of interest to look at right now. There's still that tropical wave there in the central Atlantic in the main development region, but we have not tagged that for any development now, so nothing. In the eastern Pacific, Eugene is quite close to the coast of Baja California Sur, but it is going to be moving very quickly towards the northwest away from land. A 10% chance in between these two storms, and Dora tiny, moving out towards the west and very strong right now, with winds of at least 130 miles per hour. In the western Pacific, we've got Khanun, which is still slowly edging northwards with winds of around 65 miles per hour, and the area of interest to its east now with a high chance of development, 80%, and could be a threat to the Ogasawara Islands and maybe Tokyo later on down the line. North Indian Ocean looking fairly quiet right now, but a few little areas of thunderstorms blowing up along the Bengal coast. And 1 or 2 spots further inland there as well, but in general India is quite quiet. Let's take a look at some of the satellite imagery from the last 24 hours and see what's been going on. So any of these red zones you'll see are significant areas of rainfall. Khanun, not huge amounts there, but that area of interest to its east is producing quite a bit at times. Also around the Bay of Bengal too, along the coast, a few spots of red as well. So here's Dora on the latest imagery, and you can probably get a grasp of how small it is from this imagery. It's what we always use on the Force 13 products, and you can see they're gradually moving westwards. You can't deny its appearance. It is absolutely stunning to look at. Annular characteristics has been noted by the National Hurricane Center. Its cloud tops aren't spectacular, but they're pretty good, and the eye of course very deep in the middle of all of that. Pressure probably in the low 940s, and a very powerful category 4 storm this is, unexpectedly reaching this, I think a 3rd peak this is now, and this is Khanun, extremely large, the same zoom level on this. And you can see it is still affecting the Amami Islands, still Okinawa probably getting tropical storm force winds as well, and it is going to be a massive for wind there, very large wind field no doubt, but rainfall still will be occurring in some of those spots, mainly along that western band right now, but its eye is absolutely huge. I'm not sure, I haven't measured exactly how large that is, but it must be in excess, well in excess of 50 miles, probably approaching 100. There it is on radar imagery over the last few hours, a few heavy spots there over the Amami Islands. And this there is a quick look at Eugene, possibly near hurricane status there in the last few hours, maybe an eye that tried to develop. Very strange looking storm actually for Eastern Pacific standards, but it is going to be moving off towards the northwest and should weaken fairly quickly. It might be dead within 48 hours. Sea surface temperatures are the main reason why that will be the case, because they'll be dropping like a stone in the next few days there, moving out towards the northwest. Dora is still over decent temperatures around 26 to 28 degrees Celsius. Gulf of Mexico, very warm there, really boiling actually, 32 degrees in a few spots, also around the Bahamas and the Western Caribbean. Out in the open Atlantic too, temperatures are looking good, especially compared to average. In the Western Pacific, temperatures also looking decent still, but there is a big cool slot there now, just west of Okinawa. No prizes for guessing what it was caused by, of course, Typhoon Khanun with its massive influence, but to the east there, another system could take advantage of those much warmer waters still along the coast, off those islands I should say, near the Marianas. Bay of Bengal still looking okay, pushing up close to 30 degrees Celsius. Arabian Sea much cooler. If any systems formed there, it would have to be near India. Southwest Indian Ocean is obviously into its off season and very cool, just holding on to 26 degrees in a few areas off Madagascar around the Comoros Islands. Around Australia, things are looking pretty cool there as well. Temperatures down, especially the further south you go there. No areas really reaching 26, and most of Fiji now underneath the 26 degree barrier as well. Anomalies look like this. Significant cool pool where Khanun has been in the Western Pacific, but elsewhere to the east it's warmer. Eastern Pacific is still warm and cold, but more warm now, especially further east. Clearly the Atlantic, Gulf of Mexico and main development region are very warm, up towards 3 degrees above average. Gulf of Mexico once again particularly so. It went a little bit off the boil in terms of the anomaly, but is now back on again. Oceanic heat content still very high, lots and lots of energy across the whole Caribbean Sea there into the Gulf of Mexico. Could be a major concern further down the line. Eastern Pacific, good amounts extending all the way up the Gulf of California now off the west coast of Mexico, looking good. Western Pacific will take a little while to get some of those energy values back towards the west near the Philippines, but out east it's still looking very conducive indeed. GFS computer model for the next 5 days shows Dora hiking off towards the west there, moving at speed, current motion 22 miles per hour towards the west, and of course Eugene, you can see there as well, dies off, stalls, and then what's left of its remnants turn back towards the east. You'll also see that third system there in between the two that could become a brief tropical depression maybe, but low chances of that. GFS is the strongest showing of that. Dora moving off towards the international dateline by the time we get to the end of day 5. Khanun there moving northwards steadily and slowly, and then gradually north-northwestwards just west of Kyushu, which could allow it to reach Typhoon status once again, and then a landfall right in the middle of the Korean Peninsula now, according to GFS forecast at least. Over 10 million within a 10% chance of 50 knot winds, damaging winds. There's that second storm developing quickly into a typhoon and maybe a major typhoon, and stalling for a little bit near the Ogasawara Islands as well before day 5. So definitely a lot to talk about over that very short period of time coming up this week. Looking at the Khanun, over Khanun again, the rainfall expectations for both of these storms actually, we're looking still at quite high amounts. It's mostly over for Okinawa, which is good news, but further north we're now looking at more very high rainfall amounts, getting up towards 20 inches, 500 millimeters for some of those islands south of Kyushu. Along the southern coast of the main islands of Japan, getting up towards 10 inches, 250 millimeters, and getting up to 18 inches in South Korea and in North Korea, and possibly even up towards Vladivostok in Russia, over 10 inches, 250 millimeters. And look at that, near the Ogasawara Islands, possibly close to 28 inches there as that storm might stall. Something to watch out for, that is 700 millimeters there. Wow, a lot. Longer range then, day 5 to 10. Next systems on the horizon in the Eastern Pacific. There might be one there. You can see it becoming a significant tropical storm and then maybe a hurricane. It's probably going to be a very forgettable storm, doesn't get particularly strong, and of course it's well out to sea. It may have a fairly short track, but that is a little bit out there at the moment. But I suppose like Dora, we can't underestimate these storms. It's moderately sized, it's not as small as Dora. You can see Dora bottom right there moving into the Western Pacific, what's left of it, but it will capitulate very quickly as it enters the basin. And you can see that second typhoon there moving on towards the coast of Japan, eventually landfalling to the west of Tokyo there by the looks of things within that 10-day period. So it's still quite a way out. What's that date of landfall there? We're talking maybe the 15th of August, still some distance away from that, and there will be lots of room for maneuver with its potential track. That's all the serious stuff done. We had a lot tonight. You can scan the barcode and take a look at the Force 13 merch store, where we have all of our usual items, including full season and individual animations on request, and are still waiting for Hone t-shirt. My goodness, what will the world do when that storm actually forms? In the Scilly range, possibly one or two more systems around Central America on either side. An Atlantic system forming there north of Honduras and then making landfall on the Yucatan Peninsula, and then becoming maybe a brief hurricane in the Bay of Campeche. Really says absolutely has August written all over it, that kind of track and intensity. And in the Eastern Pacific, a system forming there as well on the other side, also very common in August. Another very short one actually, almost like Eugene, and maybe even shorter and weaker. The other system that turned out to be a hurricane out over the Eastern Pacific continues, but not for very long, barely limping over into the Central Pacific threshold there, becoming a remnant low and dying off very quickly. So really nothing special expected in that time period in the Eastern Pacific. Of course, that Atlantic system would be quite interesting. So there it goes again, that East Pac storm. I'll just twiddle my thumbs for a moment here whilst we watch that play through. And the Western Pacific for that time period as well, day 10 to 16, we had that very broad system up towards the north there, following in the footsteps of that second typhoon that struck Japan, and maybe an extremely large system that forms in the South China Sea, and maybe something else that tries to form in the Philippine Sea there. Very long range, but stuff like that, you might see things like that in August. It can be very sloppy with all kinds of systems trying to develop out of massive, at times monsoonal gyres there, trying to develop into something significant. You can talk about all of that on our Discord server, discord.gg/Force13 for tropical weather and general weather chat with weather watchers from around the world. Pardon me, had to get that out of the way. On this date, it was August 7th, 1993, 30 years ago, where we had Typhoon Robin, which was peaking as a strong Category 4 on that image there, and tiny and weak, insignificant Steve to its southeast on that image. There was a tropical storm. We also had Brett in the Atlantic, which was cruising towards Trinidad, would make landfall there as a tropical storm, much like its counterpart did in 2017. And this year's Brett, of course, not much further north than that. Seems to be a bit of a theme there. There's a close-up image of Robin. Nice image there. Back to this year, the next name on the Atlantic naming list is Emily. In the Eastern Pacific now, it's Fernanda. And in the Central Pacific, of course, like some things never change, it is still Hone that we're waiting for. In the Western Pacific, our next name now is Lan. In the North Indian Ocean, it's still Tej. 35 storms so far in 2023. Still quite a jump to get to 92, but certainly this season worldwide has been about quality rather than quantity so far. Australian region, the next name is Jasper. Southwest Indian Ocean, Alvaro. And the South Pacific, our next name is Lola. Issues permitting, we should be back with another tropical weather bulletin tomorrow night.